In every age, men and women long for respect, for recognition, for a place of authority. Yet most misunderstand the nature of respect, believing it can be purchased with kindness, compromise, or endless patience. But, as Machiavelli observed, power and respect are not born from love alone. They are sustained by fear, for fear places boundaries where affection often fails. To be loved is pleasant, but to be feared is necessary. Without fear, your words carry no weight, your presence inspires no caution, and your authority dissolves into weakness. Until you learn to be feared, you will always be disregarded, used, or betrayed. Fear is not cruelty, it is the architecture of order. It is not about terrorizing the world, but about commanding it. A man who inspires fear signals strength, and strength commands loyalty. The world is full of opportunists, deceivers, and those who prey upon weakness. If you desire respect, you must show that there are limits not to be crossed. Respect is not begged for, it is imposed by your very presence. Those who cling only to kindness are devoured by the cunning. Those who wield fear without measure become tyrants hated by all. The art lies in balance, to be feared enough to command, yet not hated enough to provoke ruin. Fear, when measured and deliberate, creates stability, ensures obedience, and safeguards respect. Respect is often mistaken for affection, for polite words, or for admiration freely given, but in truth, respect that is not reinforced by fear is delicate, weak, and short-lived. Machiavelli understood that human beings are driven by self, interest above all else, and as long as respecting you aligns with their convenience, they will honor you. But the moment it costs them something, the moment their desires clash with your authority, that shallow respect dissolves, and you are left exposed. Fear, however, provides a sturdier foundation. It forces recognition even when admiration fades. It ensures your presence is not ignored because the consequences of ignoring you are too costly. This does not mean cruelty for its own sake. Fear is not about savagery or oppression. It is about establishing boundaries that others cannot cross without consequence. In every relationship, whether personal, political, or professional, there will be those who test your limits. If you rely only on kindness or trust, they will push further, sensing weakness. But when fear is part of the equation, people hesitate. They measure their actions, they weigh the risks, and in that hesitation lies the seed of genuine respect. It is not respect born of admiration alone, but of acknowledgement that you command strength, and that strength cannot be challenged without cost. Human nature is inconsistent. Love is fickle, loyalty conditional, and promises easily broken. A man may love you one day and abandon you the next when a better opportunity presents itself. But fear is consistent because it ties directly to survival. No one lightly risks what they fear. Thus, fear creates a respect that is not subject to mood or changing fortune. The soldier who loves his commander may falter when battle grows desperate, but the soldier who fears his commander's discipline fights on. The friend who admires you may betray when ambition tempts, but the friend who fears the consequences of betrayal hesitates. Fear does what love cannot, it binds loyalty with chains stronger than affection. Respect without fear is also vulnerable to manipulation. When people sense that you are eager to be liked, they exploit it. They flatter you, deceive you, and take advantage of your need for approval. In the end, they do not truly respect you, they merely use you. Machiavelli warned that such weakness is fatal for leaders. For rulers who strive to be loved at all costs are soon despised when their indulgence is taken as softness. To be respected without fear is to live at the mercy of others' whims. To be respected with fear is to ensure that your authority endures regardless of their desires. Ultimately, fear is not the enemy of respect, but its guardian. It transforms respect from a fragile courtesy into a durable force. People may not always admire you, they may not always love you, but they will always consider you. They will measure their words, their actions, and their choices in relation to the strength you project. This is why Machiavelli insists, until you learn to be feared, no one will truly respect you. For without fear, respect is nothing more than a fleeting illusion. Fear serves as the invisible wall that keeps order intact, a force that defines where others must stop. Without boundaries, human interaction descends into exploitation because people, guided by self-interest, will always test how far they can go. Machiavelli recognized this truth with clarity. Men will take as much as they are allowed, and if no deterrent exists, respect collapses. Fear is what draws the line in the sand, the unspoken rule that says, "This far, no further." Without it, kindness is mistaken for weakness, patience for passivity, and generosity for submission. Boundaries are not maintained by words alone. One may declare rules, speak of principles, or appeal to morality, but without the weight of consequence, those boundaries will not hold. A ruler who merely asks for loyalty, but does not enforce it with punishment, will soon find himself betrayed. A leader who demands discipline, but does not instill fear of disobedience, will face chaos. In personal relationships, too, the same principle applies. If you allow people to take without limit, they will, because respect without fear is nothing but a request. Fear gives the request strength, turning it into command. Consider how even in nature, boundaries are enforced through the presence of strength. The predator does not ask the prey for space. Its power creates the boundary. Likewise, in human affairs, the signal of strength, whether through decisive action, discipline, or the demonstration of consequences, creates a psychological limit that others respect. They may not always admire it, but they cannot ignore it. Fear carves out respect by reminding others that violation carries a cost. It is the cost, not the plea, that makes the boundary real. The subtlety lies in balance. If one rules by fear alone, boundaries become prisons that breed hatred and rebellion. Machiavelli warned against cruelty that serves no purpose, for excessive fear turns respect into rage. But when fear is measured, enough to show strength, not enough to provoke desperation, it becomes a stabilizing force. People may grumble in private, but they will obey. They may not love you, but they will not dare to disregard you. This balance is the true art of power, to instill just enough fear to secure respect, while avoiding the resentment that destroys it. Boundaries defined by fear also protect you from betrayal. Those who test your limits know the price of disloyalty. They may be tempted by ambition, but the fear of consequence makes them hesitate, and often hesitation is enough. Respect secured only by affection offers no such protection, because affection bends under pressure. But respect, reinforced by fear, holds firm. It ensures that people do not act against you lightly, because the risks outweigh the rewards. In this way, fear becomes not only a shield, but also a language. It communicates silently, reminding others where the invisible lines are drawn. Words can be forgotten, promises broken, but the memory of consequences lingers. When you command fear, your boundaries are recognized even in your absence, and that is true respect, not dependent on constant vigilance, but sustained by the awareness of what crossing you entails. Love, as Machiavelli observed, is one of the most fragile currencies of human relationships. It is warm and comforting, but it is also fleeting, conditional, and easily corrupted by circumstance. A person may love you today for your generosity, your charm, or your success, yet tomorrow that same love may vanish if their interests change, if their envy grows, or if another offers them more. Love is bound to emotion, and emotion shifts with the winds of fortune. This is why Machiavelli insisted that fear is far more reliable than love. While love falters when tested, fear remains steady, because it appeals not to fleeting feelings, but to the deepest instinct of self-preservation. The fickleness of love reveals itself most clearly in times of hardship. When life is easy, when wealth and prosperity are abundant, people gather around with admiration and loyalty. They sing praises, they profess devotion, and they present themselves as allies. But when fortune turns, when resources dwindle or challenges rise, those same voices fall silent or even turn against you. Love evaporates when the cost of maintaining it grows too heavy. Fear, however, does not fade with misfortune. In fact, it strengthens. A person who fears you will think twice before abandoning you, even when their affection has died, because they know there is a price for disloyalty. Fear creates consistency because it is tied to the body, not the heart. The heart is fickle. It can be swayed by beauty, kindness, or envy. The body, however, seeks survival, and when people fear punishment, consequence, or retaliation, they obey not because they wish to, but because they must. This consistency is the foundation of durable respect. If people only love you, their respect lasts as long as their affection. If they fear you, their respect endures even in the absence of affection. It is steady because it is not voluntary. It is compelled. This does not mean love is useless. Love can inspire loyalty and devotion, but its power is fragile unless reinforced by fear. A ruler who relies solely on love will be betrayed when ambition or necessity outweighs affection. A parent who seeks only to be loved by their child risks raising one who ignores authority. A leader who desires only the admiration of followers will one day watch them scatter when danger arises. Love without fear creates weakness, for it gives others no reason to remain when their emotions shift. Machiavelli, however, warned against ruling by cruelty alone. Fear without measure breeds hatred, and hatred undermines power. The true art lies in balance, to use love when it is present, but never to depend on it, and to ensure fear is always the foundation that holds respect in place. Love can be the ornament of respect, but fear must be its structure. In this light, fear becomes the anchor of authority, the one force that does not change with fortune. Love may come and go, but fear remains constant, because the instinct to avoid pain, loss, or punishment is eternal. Machiavelli's wisdom is therefore uncompromising. It is safer to be feared than loved, for love is fickle, but fear is consistent. Order is the foundation of power, and Machiavelli understood that where order collapses, respect vanishes. Chaos emerges not when people dislike a leader or authority figure, but when they stop fearing the consequences of defiance. Fear, when measured and deliberate, becomes the invisible hand that holds society, organizations, and relationships together. It prevents disorder by reminding people that certain boundaries are not to be crossed and that disobedience carries a price. Without fear, rules become suggestions, commands are ignored, and the authority that once inspired respect decays into irrelevance. To understand this, one must look at human nature. People are not naturally disciplined. They are impulsive, self-serving, and often reckless when they believe they can act without consequence. Love, kindness, or appeals to morality are insufficient to restrain such impulses. They may inspire obedience for a short time, but when temptation grows strong, those softer forces collapse. Fear, however, is different. Fear restrains action before it occurs. It plants hesitation, it creates calculation, and in that moment of hesitation lies stability. A man who might betray, steal, or defy hesitates when he fears what will follow, and often that hesitation is enough to prevent chaos. Measured fear does not mean cruelty. Machiavelli warned against excessive severity because unchecked cruelty breeds hatred, and hatred is dangerous. A tyrant who inspires only fear without balance provokes rebellion, because when people have nothing left to lose, fear loses its grip. The key is proportion. Fear must be strong enough to command obedience, but not so severe that it ignites desperation. In this way, measured fear ensures order without leading to revolt. The people may grumble, but they comply. They may not love, but they do not dare to challenge. This is the delicate balance Machiavelli called the art of ruling. Even in everyday life, this principle applies. In workplaces, families, and social circles, when there are no consequences for betrayal, disrespect, or neglect, disorder spreads. People take advantage of generosity, test limits, and undermine authority. But when clear consequences are known, and when those consequences are enforced with consistency, order remains. Respect grows not because everyone is pleased, but because everyone understands the structure. Measured fear is the quiet discipline that prevents disorder without ever needing to display violence openly. The best kind of fear is the kind that exists in people's minds before they ever act against you. Another crucial aspect of measured fear is that it creates predictability. People know what will happen if they cross certain lines. This predictability fosters stability because no one is left uncertain about the cost of disobedience. Fear becomes less about chaos and more about maintaining balance. In this sense, it is not the enemy of respect, but the very mechanism that protects it. Thus, Machiavelli's insight is timeless. Respect without fear eventually leads to disorder because people are tempted to test authority when they sense weakness. But measured fear prevents chaos by instilling discipline, hesitation, and predictability. It ensures that even when affection fades or fortune changes, order remains intact. True respect is not born from generosity alone, but from the recognition that disobedience carries consequences too heavy to risk. Machiavelli was often misunderstood as an advocate of cruelty, as if to be feared meant to inspire terror without restraint. But in truth, his wisdom was subtler. Fear and hatred are not the same. Fear creates respect, but hatred breeds rebellion. A ruler, or any individual in a position of authority, must learn the art of balance, how to be feared without becoming despised. When this balance is mastered, fear becomes a tool of order, not an invitation to ruin. The distinction lies in intention and measure. To be feared is to set clear consequences, to draw firm boundaries, and to ensure that people think twice before crossing you. It is to command discipline and obedience through strength. To be hated, however, is to abuse power, to inflict suffering needlessly, or to govern with cruelty for its own sake. Hatred arises when fear is excessive, unjust, or unpredictable. When people feel humiliated, wronged, or crushed without purpose, their respect transforms into resentment. And resentment, once it takes root, festers into revolt. Machiavelli warned of this danger repeatedly. While fear preserves power, hatred destroys it. Measured fear does not provoke hatred because it is predictable. People may not like the consequences of disobedience, but they understand them. There is a difference between punishment that enforces order and cruelty that satisfies ego. A wise leader enforces discipline when necessary, not to indulge anger, but to protect authority. This is why Machiavelli counseled rulers to be firm, but not merciless, decisive, but not bloodthirsty. Severity must always serve a purpose greater than personal desire. It must protect stability, secure loyalty, and safeguard respect. Hatred, on the other hand, grows when people perceive injustice. If punishment is arbitrary, if boundaries are unclear, or if cruelty is excessive, fear mutates into anger. Those who are merely feared will obey. Those who are hated will conspire. The difference is critical, for the feared leader commands obedience even in absence, while the hated one inspires plots the moment his back is turned. Even outside politics, the same truth applies. In personal life, parents who instill measured fear of consequences in their children raise disciplined individuals. But parents who provoke hatred through unjust severity alienate their children. In workplaces, a manager who is respected through firmness and accountability is obeyed, while one who humiliates and degrades becomes despised. Fear secures authority when it is firm and just. Hatred undermines it when it is cruel and unjust. The mastery, then, lies in balance. One must not avoid fear for fear of being disliked, nor must one indulge cruelty in the pursuit of power. Fear should be sharp enough to command respect, but tempered enough to avoid hatred. Machiavelli's brilliance was in recognizing that true authority is sustained not by love, which fades, nor by hatred, which destroys, but by a measured fear that stabilizes respect. To be feared is to be respected, provided that fear does not cross into resentment. Hatred is poison, but fear, properly measured, is strength. The wise leader knows that people need not love him, they only need to hesitate before defying him. That hesitation, born of fear, secures respect more firmly than love ever could. Betrayal, for Machiavelli, was not a rare occurrence but a certainty of human nature. People, he argued, are loyal only as long as it serves their interests. They may swear devotion, they may appear grateful, they may even love you, but when ambition, fear, or gain presents an opportunity, they will often turn against you. To rely solely on affection or loyalty is to leave yourself vulnerable, for these ties are easily severed. What restrains betrayal more effectively than love is fear, for fear places a heavy cost upon disloyalty. When people hesitate to betray you, not because they want to remain loyal, but because they dread the consequences of disloyalty, then you have established true respect. Fear acts as a deterrent by making betrayal dangerous. A soldier may admire his commander, but admiration alone will not stop him from deserting if defeat seems certain. A courtier may profess love for his prince, yet ambition may tempt him toward treachery. In both cases, affection provides no safeguard. But if the soldier knows desertion will bring severe punishment, if the courtier knows betrayal will end in ruin, their actions are constrained. Fear forces calculation, and that calculation often outweighs temptation. Machiavelli understood the psychology of betrayal well. Love is an emotion, and emotions waver with fortune. A man may love you today, but tomorrow envy or greed may eclipse that feeling. Fear, however, appeals to survival, the most powerful human instinct. When someone fears you, their self-interest aligns with obedience, because disloyalty threatens their security. Thus, fear is not simply about commanding obedience in the present, but about preventing betrayal in the future. This does not mean that betrayal can ever be eliminated entirely. Even the most feared rulers eventually faced conspiracies, but fear drastically reduces the likelihood of treachery because it forces potential traitors to weigh their ambitions against their safety. The more severe and predictable the consequences of betrayal, the less likely it becomes. Love cannot provide such a guarantee, for love can be blinded, manipulated, or corrupted. Fear, on the other hand, sharpens awareness. It makes betrayal costly enough that most people choose submission over rebellion. The power of fear in preventing betrayal is also visible beyond politics. In families, children who fear consequences for dishonesty are less likely to deceive. In business, employees who fear accountability are less likely to undermine their leaders. In personal relationships, respect enforced by fear of consequence ensures that boundaries are not crossed casually. Betrayal, in every form, is less about love failing and more about the absence of fear. Machiavelli's lesson is stark but enduring. Do not trust loyalty that depends on affection alone. Do not assume love will protect you from betrayal. Human beings are too changeable, too self-serving, to be bound by emotions for long. But fear binds them more securely because fear ties directly to their survival. To inspire fear is to make betrayal more dangerous than obedience. And in that calculation lies your protection. Machiavelli believed that strength is the foundation of respect, while weakness is an open invitation to contempt and exploitation. To understand this, one must first recognize the psychology of power. People admire power because it provides safety, direction, and order. They submit to strength because it compels them to, and in return, they gain a sense of stability. Weakness, however, inspires no such response. Instead of loyalty, it provokes doubt. Instead of respect, it attracts opportunism. A weak leader, no matter how kind or well-meaning, is seen as incapable of protecting or guiding others. In the end, weakness is not forgiven, it is punished. Strength does not always mean brute force or physical domination. It is more often the clarity of authority, decisiveness in action, and firmness in boundaries. A leader who is strong in will and clear in command sets the tone for those around him. People follow because they sense that disobedience carries weight, that disrespect carries consequences. The very presence of strength commands attention, and in this way, fear works as a stabilizing force. By contrast, when authority wavers, when decisions are delayed, or when punishment is inconsistent, weakness shows itself. The moment weakness is visible, it emboldens those who would defy, betray, or exploit. Machiavelli understood that people naturally test limits. If they sense firmness, they comply. If they sense hesitation, they push further. Weakness invites contempt because it tells others that they may act without consequence. And contempt is dangerous. It is the seed of rebellion, disobedience, and betrayal. For once a ruler, a parent, or a leader of any kind is no longer feared, their authority dissolves. They may still receive flattery or superficial gestures of loyalty, but underneath there is no respect. Strength also creates predictability, which is essential for authority. People may not like a strong leader's decisions, but they know what to expect. This breeds order. Weakness, on the other hand, breeds chaos. A weak leader is often inconsistent, sometimes lenient, sometimes harsh, making people uncertain of what to expect. This inconsistency makes them lose respect, for respect requires stability. Strength is reliable, even when it is severe. Weakness is unreliable, even when it is kind. Consider how this principle plays out in everyday life. A teacher who enforces discipline commands respect, while one who tries too hard to be liked often loses control of the classroom. A manager who holds people accountable is seen as competent, while one who avoids confrontation is quickly dismissed as ineffective. Even in personal relationships, strength in boundaries commands respect, while weakness in tolerating mistreatment invites exploitation. The lesson is universal. Where there is strength, respect follows. Where there is weakness, contempt grows. Machiavelli's wisdom was not a celebration of cruelty, but a recognition of human nature. People are drawn to strength because it provides security, and they scorn weakness because it makes them feel unsafe and unheld. To be respected, then, one must not strive to be loved at the expense of strength. Love is fleeting, but respect grounded in fear endures. Weakness loses both. Strength commands obedience, but weakness, sooner or later, ensures betrayal.